You know, there are two legal cases still going on, which the media has kind of ignored completely, totally. Number one is the Fort Hood massacre by Nidal Hassan. You remember him, the Muslim major, Allah Akbar, that fella, and the Zimmerman trial. Joining us now on the Savage Nation to talk about these cases is Paul Samakow with an update. Okay, first of all, what's going on with the Zimmerman case?
Hi, Michael. Thank you so much for having me on today. We've got the continuing issues surrounding George Zimmerman. This is the gentleman whose bullet killed Trayvon Martin. George Zimmerman, of course, is the neighborhood watch supervisor down there in Florida. The issues, of course, are whether or not he was going to be protected by Florida's Stand Your Ground laws, which allow, I guess, a self-defense claim to be one that would be victorious and he would be found not guilty. But we have been following this for months and months and months. This is kind of like the Energizer Bunny. It just keeps on ticking. And so here this case now has a couple more new wrinkles. The first of those is the motion by George Zimmerman's lawyers to get rid of the judge, to have the judge remove himself from the case. Now, you'll recall the back and forth issues with the bond, the bail bond for George Zimmerman, where we had this long hearing where George Zimmerman testified and his wife testified about how they didn't have any money, and they were let out on a pretty flimsy, pretty low amount of bond. Later it came to light that George Zimmerman, of course, had a website that was posted to help him with his legal defense fund, where he had some, I think it was $300,000 that was donated to him. So they had another bond hearing where the judge made numerous comments.
Well, like what?
He had commented in that hearing that he believed that Zimmerman, when they found out that he also had a second passport, was going to be using his ill-gotten gains from this website donation proposition, might be a plan to flee the country. Well, the judge also indicated that he felt that Zimmerman was flouting the system. The word flout was a big word in the motion for the defense, offering that they felt that the judge now was bent against Zimmerman, that his comments using the word flout in a conversation, a context that the Zimmerman was allegedly trying to manipulate the system. The defense for Zimmerman is claiming that the judge's comments were egregious and that a fair trial is impossible. Well, the judge has said, no, I'm not removing myself, so it remains to be seen if a motion that will be made appealing that decision. The other interesting part about this Zimmerman trial now, the prosecution has asked for copies of all of Zimmerman's prior medical records. And, I mean, again, I'm not a practitioner of criminal law. I've done criminal law during my career as an attorney. I perceive this to be a very reasonable subpoena that was sent so they could see Zimmerman's prior medical history. It certainly might include psychiatric issues if there are any to be seen. Of course, as would be expected, the defense is screaming that no, this is irrelevant. This has nothing to do with the trial or the issues that the court has to decide in the trial, and numerous objections have been made to the subpoena. So again, we will continue to watch this and just see how this plays out. As it does, eventually we're going to get to a trial perhaps and see whether or not that stand your ground defense will prevail, or whether Zimmerman will be convicted of the murder of Trayvon Martin.
And what's going on with the Muslim shooter at the Fort Hood massacre? Why is he not being tried?
The Fort Hood shooting is another very interesting trial that has raised a question that I think most would look at it and say, you've got to be kidding. The Fort Hood trial, just by way of background quickly for you here, Michael, we know that the Major Nidal Hassan in 2009 went to the Fort Hood, Texas Army post on a shooting rampage, killed 13 people, and more than 24 people were wounded on that occasion. Well, Major Hassan is of the Muslim religion, and he has taken to growing a beard, a very, very long beard, and he is claiming that he believes that he is going to lose the trial and that he will be convicted and that he will be sentenced to death. And when he dies, he does not want to be clean-shaven before his Maker, and that this is in contrast to his religious beliefs. Well, the issue is that the judge in the trial has told him to shave his beard, and that if he didn't, he was going to have it shaved for him, because military regulations do not allow a defendant, or anybody for that matter, in a military tribunal to come in with that type of facial hair. Very, very interesting. The case has been postponed. The trial was supposed to have started this week, and it's not going to. It's being put on hold until, I guess, Wednesday of this week, when an appeals court is going to consider Hassan's objections to being forcibly shaved.
Unbelievable.
Now, for the record, the military has shaved other people in the past. They will do this in a manner where everything will be videotaped so that there can be no objections about the type of force that's being used, but they have lined up 5 people, military individuals, who will forcibly hold Hassan down and shave him if he resists. I understand they're going to be using electric clippers, so it's not like they're going to be using straight edge that could cut him if his face were to turn violently or erratically or something like that. And they're also going to have in attendance some type of medical person that will be there just in the off situation that he has some injury as a result of being shaved. Again, my belief here is that this falls into that category of you've got to be kidding.
Exactly.
If I were Hassan, I guess I would be doing everything I could possibly do to avoid the trial, because that's just that much longer that I have the possibility of being alive. He does face the death penalty. He also faces life in prison without parole if he is convicted. And it's interesting to note that realistically, his argument really doesn't hold water, because if he is convicted of the death penalty, convicted and is given the death penalty, the appeal process would be such that by the time the appeals run out, if the conviction is upheld, he could grow a beard from here to the kitchen sink and back. It's also interesting to note that the military death row inmates, I would offer, none have been executed since 1961. So there's a very good chance that that being taken into consideration, this appeal of his, or this objection of his to being forcibly shaved, is not going anywhere. He's going to either have to do it himself, or he's going to be held down and they're going to do it for him.
Where can we read more?
Well, I have a website where they can go and listen to a lot of videos that I have up there. My website address is www.samakowlaw.com, and that's SAMAKOWLAW, samakowlaw.com.
Paul Samakow, thanks for being with us in the Savage Nation.